They're always watching. The sinister stares of my Appalachian students unveil a terrifying secret. Emily walked into the classroom for the first time, her heart pounding with excitement and dread. The air prickled with a heavy stillness that sent chills down her spine. It felt as if she had crossed into another realm, one where the innocent faces of her students turned cold and calculating the moment her eyes met theirs. She felt their scrutiny every glance like a chill wrapping around her neck. A twisted knot formed in her stomach as she wondered what secrets lay hidden beneath those cheerful masks. Days turned into a slow, creeping nightmare. Giggling used to fill her classroom, but every time Emily approached, the room fell silent, a chilling quiet pressing against her ears. A pencil would vanish in thin air, miraculously reappearing only after she looked away. One morning, the bright posters she decorated the walls with had mysteriously flipped upside down. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was all deliberate, an elaborate game she was never invited to play. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The genuinely sunny faces she once adored now bore expressions steeped in secrecy and judgment. As the whispers of folklore collided with her reality, the shadows of the town closed in. A few townsfolk warned her about local legends, speaking in hushed tones about a boy who had vanished, as if simply saying his name might conjure him back. It was unsettling, the way the parents closed ranks around this tragedy, keeping their children distant from her. One drenching afternoon, rain hammered down like heavy stones. Just as Emily thought she'd finally cracked the code of her students' ice-cold demeanor, she noticed Lily, the timid girl who always sat at the back, eyes downcast, was gone. Vanished without a trace. Panic raced through Emily like wildfire. Heart pounding, she navigated the neighboring woods, every rustle of leaves making her jump. The townsfolk, now painted as stoic sentinels, watched her with hollowed eyes. Their inability to help felt like a silent agreement to keep the past buried. On her way home that evening, Emily felt their eyes on her. The shadows of her students curled around her thoughts, each face etched into her mind, reflecting a haunting hunger. She gasped, the surreal image glaring through her window knocked the breath from her chest. They stood together, an unholy alliance in the dark. There was no mistaking the terror in their stares. It was a collective gaze filled with an ancient longing she couldn't comprehend. What had she stumbled into beneath the facade of small-town charm? Should she run? Would anyone even care if she did? As the cold weight of their eyes bore down on her, she questioned whether she had become prey in their unsettling game. The darkness crept in closer, and one truth loomed large: nobody was ever really gone, and she was now part of their shadowy story. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something truly sinister was lurking just out of sight. The woods whispered secrets, and with every creak of the trees, a dread clawed at her chest. The fear of losing herself in this small town consumed her, leaving her restless and uncertain. That night, the rain stopped, but a thick fog rolled in, mounding around her house like a suffocating blanket. It blurred the edges of reality. Lights flickered in her living room, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. They felt alive, spectators to her unraveling sanity. Each creak of the floorboards echoed in her mind, taunting her with reminders of the cries of students she couldn't protect. Sleep was a distant memory, consumed by visions of Lily's absence. She replayed every interaction, searching for signs, anything she missed that could explain the darkness swirling around her. Just before dawn, she sat upright, gasping. A shuddering image flashed through her mind: Lily's vacant chair, a shadow creeping away from it. Was it guilt? Was it a warning? As the sky lightened, a determination washed over her. She needed answers. She resolved to confront the townsfolk, digging deeper into the fabric of their unspoken fears. But as she stepped into the streets, an ominous chill settled in the pit of her stomach. The shopkeepers bustled around her, their eyes avoiding hers, as if she was a ghost passing through their reality. Words floated just beyond her reach, hushed conversations abruptly halting the moment she approached. "Do you ever think about him?" a woman whispered as Emily walked by. Her heart raced, she caught snippets of hushed tones. "He got too close," another voice muttered, filled with dread. They all seemed to carry the weight of untold stories, but no one would speak to her directly. Then she spotted a familiar face, Mr. Henderson, the local baker. His flour-covered hands trembled as he loaded bread into the display. Surely he would talk to her. Approaching him with hesitation, Emily forced a smile, hoping to coax words from him. "Mr. Henderson, have you heard anything about Lily?" The moment the name left her lips, he froze, a look of stark horror crossing his features. His eyes darted around as if expecting the walls to listen. "We don't talk of those things around here," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why not? What happened?" Anxiety clawed at her heart. He hesitated, a significant pause, then shook his head. "Curiosity has a price, Emily. Sometimes it's better to leave the past where it belongs, buried." Buried. The word stabbed at her, resonating with the tales of loss that hung heavily in the air. The sense of being watched returned tenfold. Goosebumps erupted across her skin as she turned to leave. The townsfolk had gradually quieted around her, and their eyes, those damning eyes, followed her every move. She could almost hear the collective heartbeat of their silence pulsating, like a warning against probing too deeply. Suddenly, a shrill scream shattered the morning calm. Emily's heart raced. She dashed toward the source, her breath quickening as she reached a small group gathered at the edge of the forest. Subdued murmurs surrounded the scene, where something dark lay sprawled among the trees. The fog twisted, shrouding the area in a veiled mystery that sent icy fingers down her spine. But it wasn't just what lay beneath the gnarled branches that chilled her heart, it was the way her students stood there, faces emotionless yet expectant, as if they already knew what she would find, or worse yet, who. As she stepped closer, dread intertwined with curiosity. She had to know what had happened. What had her students done? And just like that, the fog lifted enough to reveal a dark secret lying in the shadows of the town. Yet, in that moment, dread gripped her. Whatever lay ahead, it was waiting for her, and they would be watching. What was beneath those trees? What would Emily uncover about her students and the boy who vanished? The air thickened with tension as Emily forced herself to take another step forward. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to return to the safety of her home, but the weight of the students' hollow gazes anchored her in place. The fog curled around her like fingers, pulling her deeper into its suffocating grip. She pushed aside branches that clawed at her sleeves, the rustling leaves sounding like whispers of forgotten memories. A small crowd hovered around the ominous shape lying on the ground, their backs to her. She could hear the gasps, the murmurs of disbelief, and then silence. What lay in the clearing was almost obscured by the murky haze. Tentatively, Emily slowed her approach, her pulse pounding in her ears. Was it a body? Panic surged as she recalled Lily's smile, her laughter, and the day she last saw her, full of life and promise. The crowd parted slightly, enough for Emily to glimpse the truth. It was a jacket. A familiar green bomber, torn and muddy, resting at the feet of a gnarled tree like an offering to the forest. Recognition crashed over her, a wave of nausea twisting her insides. This was Lily's jacket. The realization squeezed her throat, and she felt both faint and furious. What happened to her? Emily's voice was barely a whisper, catching the attention of the crowd, their faces turning towards her like a swarm of dark shadows. "Don't," a boy's voice, Stephen S., cut through the tension, his eyes wide. He stepped toward her, hesitating, as if torn between warning her and revealing the truth. "It's not safe here." A chill gripped her heart. "What do you mean?" Before he could respond, one of the girls, another student named Sarah, stammered, "You shouldn't have come. The fog, it knows." Her voice broke, fear etched into every line of her face. The other students nodded, their expressions shifting from shock to something darker, bordering on dread. "He'll come for you," Stephen warned, his tone urgent, desperate. "You have to leave." "Leave? I'm not going anywhere until I know what happened." The resolve in her voice masked the dread pooling in her stomach. She scanned the faces, searching for answers, their silence deeper than the woods around them. Then, from the underbrush, a dreadful rustle echoed, followed by an unholy, guttural sound that grated against the air. Emily felt her heart stop. Was it an animal? No, it was too deep, too primal, the sound of something alive and lurking. The group stumbled back, gasping and whispering in panic. "Run!" someone shouted. A chain reaction erupted, students darting away like feathers in a violent storm. Emily's feet wouldn't move. She was rooted, ensnared by terror and fascination. As the fog suddenly thickened once more, obscuring her view of everything but the shadows, a figure emerged from the mist. The outline was too tall, too menacing, the way the darkness folded around it looked familiar yet terrifying. Emily's breath quickened, her skin prickling. Emily, it called her name in a voice that twisted the syllables, a laugh lingering in the sound. "You wanted to know, didn't you?" Every instinct screamed at her to flee, but her feet felt like stone. "Who are you?" The figure stepped closer, revealing glimpses of a face, one that belonged to someone she once knew but couldn't quite place, a schoolmate. A memory long buried? The fog wrapped tighter, the woods groaned, and dread wrapped around her heart like a noose. "Find out what lies beneath or let it consume you." With those ominous words echoing in her mind, Emily's world twisted further into chaos. Where once there was only curiosity, now lay a tangled web of fear. What lay hidden in the fog? What truth did the figure hold? And what price would she pay to uncover the sinister past of her students? The whispering fog thickened, curling around Emily like a shroud. Her heart raced, a frantic drumbeat screaming at her to unravel from the looming dread. Every peripheral noise drowned beneath the pulses of her blood. She couldn't tear her gaze off the figure, clinging tightly to the shadows, blacker than dark itself. Beneath, the voice echoed. It slithered into her mind, teasing and tormenting, pulling her deeper into a chasm of anxiety. What lay beneath? Was it the truth about Lily? Or something darker? "Emily." Stephen's voice cut through the night air again, more frantic this time. He lunged for her, stopping just shy of the embrace of the fog, his eyes wide with fright. "We have to go." "But what does it want?" She croaked, her voice scraping against her throat like shards of glass. "It wants you to see." He shouted over the growing noise, which crackled in the distance, an otherworldly hum of something terrible stirring. "Don't listen to it." Emily felt drawn to the figure, as if gravity's pull twisted around her core. She hesitated, fighting the urge to step forward. Behind her, the remaining students shifted nervously, their dark eyes glancing back towards the tree line, as if expecting the forest to devour them whole. With each hesitant moment that passed, the silhouette morphed into something almost human, its essence shifting, pulling her with an invisible thread. The laughter, twisted yet familiar, rang out again, filling the clearing like a malevolent echo. It pierced the fog and chased away the fading gasps of fear. "Find out what lies beneath." The words dripped with malice, wrapping around her like a snake. Breathless, she spun toward Stephen. "What lies beneath? What does it mean?" "I can't tell you," he begged, his voice a trembling whisper. "You're not ready." "No, I need to know." Panic fueled her voice, shouting into the abyss. Each shouted word felt like a lifeline, tethering her to some fragmented sense of control. Yet as she spoke, the shadows shifted like a living tapestry of fear. With sudden clarity, the figure moved, gliding closer through the swirling mist. Emily's breath hitched. Its face emerged a grotesque mockery of innocence. Features were draped in shadows, each detail sharper than any blade. It was as if someone had pulled the boyish charm of a familiar face and distorted it into a nightmarish facade. "Why are you hiding the truth?" Out flew the question, erupting from a place embedded deep in her gut. She felt a flicker of bravery surge through her. The figure chuckled, a sound that trickled into her veins, chilling rather than warming. The truth is always here, Emily. It just takes courage to reveal it. The fog swirled around them, revealing glimpses of twisted paths and gnarled roots that seemed to throb with life, pulsing in sync with her racing heart. She bit her lip and narrowed her eyes at the figure. "What do you want from me?" "Your struggle is entertaining," it replied, a smirk playing on its unnatural lips. "But don't worry. You'll soon understand. They're always watching. Always waiting." Emily's heart plummeted, the weight of the dawning realization crashing over her. Had the others known? Did they see something in her? In Lily? As fear sank its talons deeper, she felt the student's frenzied whispers envelop her, drawing nearer. "Emily," they hissed in unison, their voices weaving through the fog like threads of an unholy tapestry. "Get back!" Stephen shouted, his voice a stark contrast to the others, breaking the chorus of menace. He grabbed Emily's arm, yanking her backwards, but the grip of the fog and the figure held her fast. With a sudden surge, it lunged at her, a tide of shadow and terror, but Emily's instincts finally kicked in. She struggled against the grasp of the fog. The figures melted into the darkness, leaving her and Stephen alone in the clearing, breaths coming in ragged gulps. "Did you see it?" Emily gasped, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Did it say anything?" "They'll come for you," he panted, eyes darting away as if he could sense the lurking danger. "They always do." What did he mean? What awaited her beyond the fog? No longer could she hide behind ignorance. The walls were closing in, and the truth would claw its way to the surface. But would she be brave enough to face what lay hidden in the woods? Emily's resolve solidified. She had to uncover the sinister truth. She had to know. As she turned to push through the fog once more, a new voice pulled at her from the shadows. "Then let us begin." With a shiver crawling up her spine, Emily knew only fear could follow. What had she awakened, and could she survive its wrath? The fog seemed to pulse around Emily, a living entity heavy with anticipation. Every breath felt like an invitation, a challenge, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something was already watching. Her heart raced as she and Stephen stepped further into the suffocating mist. "Emily, we have to get out of here," Stephen urged, pulling her wrist, his eyes darting around them. The whispers among their classmates fell silent, leaving an unsettling stillness that settled over the clearing like a shroud. "What if they're right?" she whispered back, her breath barely escaping her lips. "What if the truth is in that shadow? What if it knows about Lily?" "Stop it. Just stop," Stephen shouted, his voice bearing the weight of their shared past, a mix of urgency and fear. "The fog is making you think this way. None of it is real." "Not real?" Emily bit back, the anger boiling beneath her skin. "What if this is real? What if it's our chance to understand?" Without waiting for a reply, she wrested her arm from Stephen's grip and turned toward the shadow, which loomed closer, drawing her in like a moth to flame. The laughter echoed again, and with it, the fog thickened, wrapping around her like a lover and a predator combined. See what they buried?" The voice coiled around her, its rhythm like a heartbeat. It came from everywhere and nowhere, serpentine and intoxicating. "Stop!" she cried, clenching her fists. "Why are you doing this? Lies shield you, Emily. The truth will free you," it hissed from its depths, mocking her resolve. "Is this what you want?" Emily shouted, anger mingling with fear. "Is this what you call freedom?" But as she spoke, the shadows began to twist, revealing fleeting images of her friends' faces: panic, desperation, and something darker. Lily's eyes, wide and scared, pleaded from the haze, haunting Emily like a ghost tied to a weighty truth. "Lily was lying to you," the shadow answered, shifting in and out of her line of sight. "Oh yes, you see her innocence fading. Why do you think she disappeared?" What happened beneath that glimmering facade? An icy shock coursed through Emily. Her hands trembled as the echoes of betrayal washed over her. Had Lily really been hiding something? Before she could voice the fear lurking in her heart, the figure lunged, a pit of darkness swallowing the space before her. Emily! Stephen shouted, his voice slicing through the moment of truth. He surged forward, trying to shield her from the grasping shadows. The figure paused, contemplating Stephen. When light shines, it reveals all. But darkness conceals. The figure's tone twisted, dripping like poison, making Emily's stomach churn. Get away from her! Stephen shouted, positioning himself between Emily and the growing silhouette. You don't belong in this world. You can't have her. No one can hide from what exists in the dark, it whispered menacingly. Suddenly, the figure blurred, materializing into the shapes of their classmates, each face twisted in either anger or despair. You've all chosen to ignore the truth, and now, it's time to pay. Emily gasped, dread pooling in her gut. Were they behind this? The group she had trusted? The flickering shadows seemed to validate the unthinkable, and the air grew heavy with an overwhelming sense of abandonment. Don't listen, Emily. Stephen's eyes were frantic, searching hers desperately for reassurance, but as the whispers resumed, rising to a crescendo, reality slipped away. Emily could feel chains tightening around her, drawing her ever closer to the shadowy depths. You will all be watched forever, it hissed, each word igniting the spark of panic. Fight it. Don't let them in. Stephen yelled, gripping her shoulders, shaking her from the haze. Through sheer determination, Emily pushed against the shadows wrapping around her mind. Why don't you tell us the truth instead? She spat, her voice like steel. The figure recoiled momentarily, rage brewing beneath its surface. You dare challenge me? The truth lies beneath you all, and once revealed, it will consume what little is left of your hope. Emily steeled her resolve, breathing deep. Whatever it was trying to weave around her, she refused to be pulled under. But even as she fought, the shadows surged forward, plunging the space into a chilling scream, a world where truth and darkness intertwined. As the chaos mounted, Emily's vision blurred, the shadows erupting into a storm of whispers and screams. Then silence like a fog descending anew, thick and heavy. Now, the figure cooed, its voice tantalizing and dark, let us see just how far you're willing to go. Emily stumbled back, darkness closing in, panic rising. It was just the beginning. What awaited her now? What lay beneath? The truth, or simply another layer of terror? The fog swirled even more violently, a swirling tempest that continued to coil and twist around Emily and Stephen. They were trapped in its grip. Panic clawed at her throat as the shadows deepened, a suffocating blanket that threatened to suffocate her reason. Emily, we need to act now. They're trying to confuse us. Stephen's voice cracked, desperation etched on his face. Yet, there was little he could do against the looming presence that surrounded them, morphing into gruesome shapes that clawed at the edges of their minds. Who are you? Emily screamed, her voice barely carrying through the thick fog. What do you want from us? The laughter returned, a hollow echo that reverberated. I want to show you the truth, my dear. Is that so wrong? The shadow shifted, its form flickering as if it were a candle flickering in a storm. Show me. Show me what? She gasped, her heart racing, eyes darting around for any movement. Was it a trick? Were they slipping further into madness? With a lurch, the fog cleared, just briefly. Emily caught a glimpse of a scene: a group of their classmates gathered in a circle, faces twisted with something that resembled pain and fear, but also a strange, hollow joy. They were huddled over something in a clearing not far away, their expressions illuminated by an eerie glow. No, no, no! Stephen shouted as he grabbed Emily's arm, pulling her away. It's using them against us. We have to stay focused. But Emily's eyes were magnetized to the macabre scene. Lily, she breathed, recognizing her friend among the twisted faces. She stepped closer despite the grip of fear tightening in her chest. What are they doing? Stop. Don't look. Stephen yelled, pulling her back. But it was too late, the darkness began to whisper again, sibilant and sweet. They all knew, Emily. Even Lily, the shadows curled around Stephen as they taunted him, called him an outsider unworthy of understanding. No. He shouted, shaking his head fiercely. You're wrong. And then sudden clarity struck Emily. She remembered the little things, the hushed conversations and the way Lily had refused to talk about certain moments, the whispers that went silent when she entered the room. Was it all connected? Emily. The urgency in Stephen's voice grounded her momentarily. We have to go. We need to escape this. But the fog thickened once again, and with it came more ghostly faces. They seemed to plead with her, eyes wide with despair, yet their mouths twisted into forced grins. Do you want to join us, Emily? We're all waiting. Images flooded her mind, flickers of broken friendships, dark secrets, the feeling of being an outcast. What are you trying to show me? What did Lily do? The surrounding shadows pulsed in response, as if savoring her desperation. The truth is a bitter pill, Emily. Like all the others, you will be faced with your own choices. Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced through the chaos, like a knife pulled through her stomach. It doubled her over, a sharp reminder of dread and betrayal. She gasped for air, clutching her sides, confusion drowning out her thoughts. Don't give in. Stephen shouted, his voice clear though the edges grew dim. You're stronger than this. But as she looked up, everything changed. The darkness rippled, showing her a different view. A sinister reflection of herself smiling, eyes gleaming with a malevolence she couldn't fathom. Will you embrace your darkness? It hissed, invitingly. Will you follow us? The urge to scream shattered the silence as the fog clawed its way back. It was suffocating, curling into her lungs, spinning the room into horror once more. Stephen! She cried, feeling him slipping away. We have to fight this together. Then, an unexpected tremor ran through the shadows. The fog unraveled, leaving trails of grotesque shapes twisting into familiar forms. Faces from her past friends, neighbors all consumed by something darker. As the whispers crescendoed, something broke in the shadows, revealing a split path just behind them. A mournful howl cut through the air. Two choices lay before them, one illuminated by a sickly light, the other veiled in shadow and fear. Choose now, Emily. The dark figure growled. What will you sacrifice to learn the truth? Emily's breath hitched. The pressure was immense, the weight of the choice looming over her as she stood at the edges of horror. Which path would she take? Would she brave whatever awaited her in search of answers, or would she cower in the safety of the familiar? This wasn't just about her or Stephen anymore. It was about facing a truth darker than the fog itself. The ultimatum hung like a noose around her neck as she began to step forward. The ground felt unstable beneath Emily's feet as she stepped toward the illuminated path. A static crackle buzzed the air, igniting the hairs at the nape of her neck. She glanced back at Stephen, his expression torn. Emily, don't! He shouted, but his voice was swallowed by the thickening mist. I have to know. She cried out. The truth burned within her, a desperate ember begging to be fanned into a flame. She stepped further into the sickly light, her heart pounding in her chest. The darkness reared back, an angry snarl echoing through the void. Choose wisely, Emily, it sneered, retreating as the light flickered, revealing twisted forms that writhed with anticipation. Shadows pressed closer to her, clawing for a hold on her thoughts. With a breath that felt ragged, she focused on the glowing path. It led deeper into the heart of their school, the place she thought she knew so well. But as she ventured forward, everything felt wrong. The walls twisted, pulling and reshaping as if she were inside a living nightmare. Lockers dripped with a viscous black substance, and each step echoed with the whispers of familiar voices. "Emily, we're all waiting for you," it taunted, a chorus of her friends' voices, punctuated by laughter that chilled her spine. "No. You're not real," she shouted, gripping her arms as if to resist their pull. But memory flooded her senses, fragments of laughter and shared secrets morphing into something sinister. Just before she reached the doorway at the end of the corridor, the scene twisted. She was thrust backward into the shadows, rushing toward the other path, where the dark figure lay in wait, beckoning her closer. "Fear not, child. This is the choice you were meant to make," it growled, its soot-black eyes glinting with malice. The figures began to congeal, enjoying her anguish, eyes wide with twisted delight. Stephen's voice broke through the veil, strained and desperate. "Emily. Come back. This isn't what you think." But the allure of understanding pulled her deeper. The fog thickened once more, swirling around him, seemingly tugging him beneath. "Let him go!" She screamed in frustration, her heart rebelling against the betrayal of her own feet, stepping closer to the darkness. "Let go, Emily. Embrace your true self," the figure hissed. "Don't you see? They've abandoned you to their own darkness. You belong here." An image flashed, Lily's face distorted by an unsettling smile, eyes hollow and void of life. A sinister memory echoed, Lily laughing at a party, sparks flying and shadows gathering behind her, whispering promises of belonging through the vibrant laughter of their youth. Emily stumbled, reeling as reality ebbed and flowed like the fog around her. "No!" she cried out, hands covering her ears. "This isn't happening. I can't." Pain flared anew in her stomach, forcing her to the ground. The shadows wrapped around her, squeezing tighter, squeezing hope and reason from her very being. "Choices must be made," the dark figure murmured, its voice a velvet snare. "You cannot escape the truth." Suddenly, she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She jerked, realizing it wasn't the figure. It was Stephen, haloed by the sickly glow. "Emily, you're stronger," he shouted, but his words echoed with the sound of breaking glass. With a surge of will, she flicked her gaze back to the shadowed path. "I choose," she gasped, breath fogging in the air. The moment hung, electric and heavy with anticipation. Will she stand with Stephen and try to break free? Or will she dive deeper into the mystery of her past? The ground quaked, and the whispers heightened, swelling into a gale of voices. The decision felt colossal, like a tidal wave crashing over her, and yet she felt immobilized, torn between fleeting hope and grasping despair. Which direction would they take? Would they be ensnared by the darkness, or could they carve out a path of their own? The weight of uncertainty surged as the shadows closed in tighter. A scream rippled through the air. "Emily!" And the fog draped down like a heavy curtain, leaving only the unsettling question hanging. Were their choices truly theirs to make? Emily's voice trembled in the charged air as the shadows danced around her, swirling with malevolent intent. The dark figure, still looming, grinned wider at her dilemma. "What will it be, my dear?" it taunted, its breath a foul wind sung with a chorus of whispered lies. Choose wisely." The clamoring voices, once comforting, now dripped with bitter mockery. Emily's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like a caged animal desperate for escape. But she felt rooted in place, the pull of the darkness heavy and suffocating. Time slowed, or perhaps it sped up, she couldn't tell anymore. Whispers layered over one another, crashing against her mind, drowning her with secrets she didn't want to hear. She could hear Lily's laughter break in like shattering glass, slicing through the confusion. "You wanted this, Emily." It sang with chilling delight. "You've always wanted to know. Stop it." Her voice echoed, raw and desperate. Panic rippled through her as the memories clawed at her consciousness. Their faces, once warm, now morphed into grim masks, grinning down at her from the shadows. Was this what she sought, the truth of their betrayals, the darkness that had been roaming just beyond her sight? And then there was Stephen, his silhouette fracturing against the light. "Emily!" He yelled again, but his voice felt distant, a fading echo as the shadows encroached. "Fight it. You're not alone." The hope in his words gave her a momentary jolt, but doubt clawed at her, pouring doubt into her veins. What if this was what she was meant for? "Feel the power within you, Emily." The dark figure crooned, its voice slithering around her. "You don't need them. This is where you belong." It gestured expansively, revealing the swirling chaos behind, an abyss waiting to embrace her fully. "Enough!" She screamed, forcing her eyes shut, summoning every last ounce of strength she had. Suddenly, reality snapped back into focus, and she could hear her own breath, rough and jagged, punctuating the heavy silence that hovered like a body in water. With a surge, she broke her gaze away, turning toward the only other choice, the rapidly deteriorating shadows of the corridor where Stephen stood. "I choose him!" She shouted, the words raw and fierce. The darkness shrieked, a shrill sound that twisted and turned, clawing at her with all its might. The ground trembled again, but this time it felt different. It felt like they were fighting back, pulling away from the oppressive grip of despair. The shadows shrank momentarily, revealing patches of bright, blinding light that flickered like dying stars. "Emily, hold on!" Stephen cried, rushing forward through the mist. The twisting shadows clawed at him, eager to drag him down too. "We can get out." She could feel the darkness grasping, clawing for her ankles like a suffocating fog. But with every ounce of will, she pushed forward. Strained muscles and a blinded heart propelled her towards him. "Don't let go!" she cried, reaching out. As their fingers brushed, the ground beneath them began to splinter like shattered glass. The school walls shivered, warping as they threatened to fold in on themselves, a final goodbye to the familiar terrain of her childhood. Then, in a split second, it all shifted. The mist parted violently, and the dark figure lunged forward with fury, hissing, "You will regret this choice." With a deafening roar, the shadows expanded, swallowing the last flicker of light just as she felt Stephen's fingers grip hers tight. They plunged into the pitch black, the screams of the haunted surrounding them, echoing into a reality Emily couldn't comprehend. And then, silence.as the void consumed them, a clarity emerged. They weren't falling into despair. They were falling into something else entirely, a revelation that shone at the end of this terrifying abyss. She felt a pulse beneath the weight of fear, a heartbeat of a new reality waiting for her. Now, the question remained, what awaited them on the other side, and how would it change everything they knew? Darkness enveloped Emily and Stephen, thick and suffocating. As their rapid descent began to waver, the silence turned electric, buzzing with an unbreakable tension. Faint glimmers of light flickered ahead, pulsating like desperate fireflies lost in the night. They shifted in and out of view, inviting yet ominous. "Emily, can you hear me?" Stephen's voice cut through the quiet, shaky but determined. "We have to keep moving." She nodded, even though she felt paralyzed by fear. What awaited them in this abyss? Was it the darkness that had haunted their lives or something far worse? The whispers from earlier hung in the air, wrapping around her like a serpentine coil. She could still hear fragments. "This is where you belong, you wanted this." Every word twisted the knife of anxiety deeper into her heart. "Stay close." Stephen pulled her tight against him, their hands interlocking fiercely. He took a step forward, coaxing her out of her frozen state. "Just follow my voice." They started to move, the ground shifting beneath their feet like molten glass. Each step felt like walking on the edge of a precipice, balance on the verge of collapse. The lights ahead began to take shape, revealing a distorted landscape. What once felt fluid began to solidify, an unsettling reality unfolding. Great stone walls rose ominously around them, twisted and gnarled, damp with an unseen moisture. Shadows lingered, clinging to the architecture like the specters of screams past. Emily shivered as she felt the hot breath of the void on her neck, as if it were more than just darkness circling her. It was alive. What loomed ahead materialized into a sprawling great hall, filled with towering figures cloaked in shadows. The faces were obscured, yet she could feel their eyes boring into her hungry, expectant. A collective gasp filled the room, a sound both terrifying and seductive. "What is this place?" Emily whispered, fear threading into every word. "I don't know." Stephen's voice cracked, and for the first time, uncertainty marred his usually steadfast demeanor. "But we must keep going." The few flickering lights that remained showed glimpses of a table encrusted with strange artifacts that wriggled and pulsed, like they were imbued with a dark essence. A chilling realization struck her: this was a gathering, a celebration of the lost and forgotten. The memories, the shadows of her past were now here, alive in an unexpected carnival of horrors. Then, from the haze of darkness, an echoing voice rang out. "Ah, fresh souls drawn to the invitation of revelation. Welcome, or should I say, welcome back." The voice held a grotesque glee, each syllable twisted with contempt and malice. Emily's heart dropped. Was this the dark figure from before, now bolder and hungry for a feast of despair? The laughter that followed was unnerving, a symphony of long-lost spirits rejoicing in sickness. "Run, Emily!" Stephen yelled, pulling her away from the illumination of horror surrounding the table. But as they turned, hands reached out from the shadows, long and gnarled like tree roots. They gripped her ankles, raw and ice-cold, pulling her back toward the dread-filled assembly. No. She fought against the grasp, panic surging through her. If they trapped her here, she would be lost, and perhaps Stephen would be lost with her. Were they meant to witness this hell together? The shadows met her gaze with sinister delight. As she thrashed, desperation fueled her movement. "Not now. Not like this." She screamed. The darkness shrieked again, and in a flash of a heartbeat, she felt the grip loosen momentarily. But the voice from the dark figure sang sweetly, taunting, "You can't escape what you truly are, what you're meant to become." "I won tea." She cried defiantly, and in her heart, she believed it. But did believing it make it true? Together, they surged forward, the echoes behind her rising in pitch, hungry for flesh, memories, or whatever it was that fueled their nightmarish existence. The hallway stretched on ahead, thick with despair, and yet, as they ran deeper, Emily understood one inescapable truth: the darkness, once threatening, felt almost familiar. At the edge of her consciousness, she could fire back against it, harness its energy, but with every step, she sensed the pulse growing in her own veins, a blend of fear and power surging like a tide. Would it consume her as well? They pressed on, each heartbeat echoing through the hall. The walls whispered secrets that could shatter everything they ever knew. What lay around the next corner? Would they find freedom, or would the shadows reclaim their souls? Emily and Stephen raced through the twisting hall, shadows clawing at their heels, whispering promises of despair. The sinister laughter echoed, reverberating off the walls like a cruel joke. Each step sent jolts of dread coursing through their bodies, pushing them to move faster, though the darkness seemed to thicken with each passing moment. "Don't look back!" Stephen shouted, his voice a lighthouse in the storm. "Keep pushing." But behind them, the shadows pulsed with malevolent energy, almost alive, writhing as if eager to engulf them fully. Emily could feel her heart hammering in her chest, a frantic drumbeat urging her to escape. It was a terrifying race against time and something far worse than mere darkness. As they rounded a corner, an opening appeared ahead, flickering with light, a promising portal amid the chaos. "That way!" Emily cried, her breath hitching with hope and fear. It was a gamble, but what choice did they have? The glow wrapped around them like a siren song as they barreled toward it, the specters clinging closer, breath hot on their backs. "We can make it," she urged, adrenaline bonding her resolve. Just as they neared the light, the shadows lunged forward, grasping at their ankles, their cold tendrils wrapping tight. "No!" Emily screamed, yanking free just in time to plunge into the radiance. They tumbled to the ground, landing hard on their knees. The light enveloped them, erasing the darkness that sought to claim them. With gasps of relief, they heaved in the fresh air, feeling the weight of the enchantment dissipate. The portal closed behind them, sealing the shadows away from their realm, but as they caught their breath, a heavy darkness still loomed. This was not salvation but a new dimension of light tinged with uncertainty. "Where are we?" Stephen whispered, eyes wide in disbelief. Emily scanned their surroundings. A vast, open field stretched before them, lush and vibrant, almost surreal in contrast to the terror they just experienced. Strange shapes flickered in the distance, and a sense of foreboding still gnawed the air. "Is this a trick?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "Or have we truly escaped?" As if in answer, the shadows began to coalesce again, swirling at the edges of the field beneath an unforgiving sky. Unseen eyes watched them, flicking like sparks in the darkness. "Emily," Stephen's voice cracked, uncertainty edging his words. "They followed us. This goes deeper, doesn't it?" "Yes," she said, her tone heavy with realization. All the darkness they had faced was a part of them, a reflection of their fears, their secrets, and their choices. They needed to confront it, not simply run away. Facing it may just be the only way to truly escape it, Emily spoke, the gravity of her words sinking in. "Together?" Stephen looked at her, seeking assurance, and the warmth in his expression steadied her racing heart. She nodded resolutely, determination sparking within. "Together." From the tide of shadows, figures began to emerge. Not incredibly threatening, but familiar classmates, friends, even Lily stood among them, no longer twisted and tormented, but serene and expectant. They surrounded the two, their eyes glimmering in the fading light, a collective strength emanating from their presence. "Emily," Lily spoke, voice clear like a bell cutting through the silence, "the truth doesn't hide in shadows. It's woven within each of us. We've carried these burdens too long." Every emotion bubbled to the surface. Guilt, anger, sadness, it streamed like a river through her veins. "What do you mean?" Emily's voice shook but was fierce, demanding. "What happened? What did you do?" "We buried the truth, all of us," Lily replied softly. "But facing it will allow us to rise together, stronger than before. Embracing the shadows within each of us is the only way to heal. And we've all had a part in this," Lily continued, stepping closer. "We've watched each other fall into despair instead of lifting one another. But now we can choose differently." Suddenly, the light flickered and the darkness, the shadows, surged around the edges of their new realm, threatening to close in. Emily took a deep breath, drawing strength from the friends who once filled her life with laughter and joy. "Let us face it," she declared, voice ringing out as loud as thunder. "No more fear, no more hiding. Together." The breeze picked up, carrying the weight of their shared fears, hurt, and longing to find peace. They stood together, united and resolute, and the shadows hesitated, wavering. As they focused their energy on confronting what haunted them, the darkness curled back, retreating like a reluctant tide. It was a confidence born of shared understanding, acceptance, recognizing their collective pain, yet refusing to be defined by it. The dark murmurs turned into questions, and questions birthed understanding. One by one, the figures of their classmates and friends stepped forward, voices melding into a single powerful chorus. "We can heal. We can evolve. We can forgive." The ground shook lightly beneath them as shadows morphed, twisting into translucent shapes that carried the weight of what they had all hidden. "Let it go, Emily. Let us go." Lily's voice rang clear, and it was like the plea of every piece of hurt that had resonated within her. Slowly, they felt the burdens lighten. With a collective breath, they released what they had clung to: fear of rejection, childhood traumas, and tragic loss. The shadows writhed, then dissipated in the wind. Finally, the world around them shimmered in a delicate glow. Freedom swept through their hearts as the past melted away. Maybe this was the truth they had long sought: strength lies in understanding, healing, and connection. The field thrummed with vibrant energy, the promise of new beginnings glimmering just ahead. Emily turned to Stephen, and they shared a knowing smile, aware of the battle they had fought together, a battle far greater than themselves. The way forward opened peacefully before them, light-filled and bright. Together, stepping into the future, Emily felt hope blooming in her chest, the shadows fading into memory. No one would go unseen anymore, they would face everything as one. And as they strode forward, the whispered promise echoed through the air, like a vow made anew, we are always watching and we choose hope. You need to subscribe now to keep up with all the exclusive stories and spine-chilling conclusions like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and ensure we can keep the inspiration alive. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this unforgettable ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could use some thrills and chills too. Your support means the world, and only true fans truly understand the importance of keeping this community strong.